Galton, nutrition educator at the Interfaith Food Pantry. We're in our Healthy Choices kitchen today, and it's November, so we're going to be thinking about Thanksgiving. We're going to be skipping right from the big Thanksgiving meal to the leftovers. The recipe that I'm going to make today is called Harvest Stew, and it's going to use some turkey leftovers, a nice way to use some of those leftovers. I'm also going to be discussing different ways that you can help keep yourself safe in your kitchen, help protect yourself from foodborne illness. We'll be talking about 4 different techniques: cleaning, keeping things clean, separating things, cooking things to the right temperature, and then chilling them, cooling them properly. So let's get started with my Harvest Stew. I've already started, heated the oil, and we're going to get started putting our vegetables in there. I'm going to be putting some onion in, some celery, carrots. These look a lot like the carrots, but don't get tricked. These are sweet potatoes. And then I put some white potatoes in. So you can use a combination of white and sweet potatoes. You can use a combination of just sweet potatoes, or you could even use just white potatoes. I'm just going to let these get browned a little, and then we'll come back and add our other ingredients. So the first thing I mentioned in keeping yourself safe in the kitchen is cleaning. So the first thing you always want to do is clean your hands whenever you're going to cook. So of course I washed my hands, soap and water, before I came in to get this recipe started. The next thing you want to do is make sure your counters are clean. Wash them off. Use hot soapy water. You know, you might not think about it, but think of all the things that you put down on your counter. You might not want some of those things that they've touched coming in contact with the food that you're going to be preparing or using cooking on your counter. So clean your hands, clean your counters. Make sure your utensils are clean. Make sure you're not using the spoon that kind of got left in the sink and then you're going to use it again. Don't want to do that. So keep that going, and while that's cooking, I'm going to turn that up just a little bit. Just mention I put those things in pretty quickly, so let's go back and see what I did put in. Put in some onion, put in some carrot. So as you can see already, we are loaded with vegetables. We're going to be getting lots of fiber and vitamins. Carrots, a great source of vitamin A. Celery, again, gives us some good fiber and vitamin C. Potatoes, good source of potassium, and again, fiber. Again, our sweet potatoes, some vitamin A and potassium also. Vitamin A is great for our vision, helps protect our eyes. We talk about vitamin C, that's a great vitamin for our immune system, helps support our immune system and wound healing. So, like I've said before, you can't go wrong eating vegetables. They taste good, but you're getting so much more from them than just filling you up when you're eating them. And now our nice pan with vegetables, with our sweet potatoes, carrots, onions, celery is smelling good, but it's also getting a nice little brown to it, which will give a little bit of caramelization and a little bit of flavor. So the next thing I'm going to do is add some chicken broth, and as always, I always try to use a broth with less sodium or lower sodium. I'm going to pour that in. You hear the sizzle to that. And then I'm going to add a little bit of seasoning. So for this I'm going to add a bay leaf. Bay leaf goes in, it gives it a nice flavor. Bay leaves are often used in soups or stews. I'm going to put it in just whole. Have it in there. And then I'm going to make sure when I'm finished cooking this that I pull the bay leaf out. You don't want to leave that bay leaf in. You me see if I can show you. It's not soft. It's brittle. So it's not something that you would want to bite into. And then the other seasoning I'm going to put in is some thyme. And thyme is a nice seasoning that goes with poultry. So we'll get that just so it's boiling. I'm bringing it to a boil. And then I'm going to get that bay leaf in there for good. And then I'm going to turn it down a little bit so it simmers, which means it's not going to be bubbling quite so much. And I'm going to put the lid on, and that's going to soften all of the vegetables. So after that's softened, the next thing I'm going to be adding is some apples, and I'm going to be adding some cranberries. Now, cranberries, you have a whole big choice of what you can add. If you have fresh cranberries and want to add fresh cranberries, that's perfect. If you have some leftover cranberry sauce, that's also a great addition to this. So what I've done is I'm going to be using some leftover of the whole berry cranberry sauce. Just want to mention, earlier when I talked about having things clean, one thing that often gets forgotten is to just make sure the tops of your cans are clean or wiped off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my can before I open it. I'm going to run it under water. And then I'm just going to dry it off. Because there again, cans are something you don't think about a lot, but you think of all the places that they've been, all the people that have handled them. So if you just take that extra step and wipe it off, then when you open the can, that is not going to go into your food. It's just another step to keep yourself safe. So I've already opened the can, and so I've taken my cranberries. And what I did with these is the canned cranberry sauce does have a lot of extra sugar in it. So what I decided to do was I put my can of cranberry sauce in the strainer. I ran it under hot water just to drain off some of that extra jelly that I didn't want to use. But that's up to you what you want to do. Sometimes people will say, gosh, what can I do with cranberry sauce? Maybe you have an extra can at home, you're not quite sure what to do with it. You can use it in a variety of different ways. Use it as an add-in to different things. If you have oatmeal in the morning, put a spoonful of cranberry sauce in with it. That'll give it a nice harvest or holiday flavor. You can actually use it as a substitute for jelly or jam. Spread a little bit on toast if you have maybe some peanut butter on some toast. Spread a little cranberry sauce on it. If you make a smoothie, add a little bit to a smoothie. You can use it as a glaze for different meats. Because the cranberry sauce is what they call jelly, as it heats, it becomes more liquid. So if you put it on some meat, it becomes more liquefied as it heats. So let's see how this is coming. Getting a little bit softer. I'm just going to test it. See if that is getting soft. I'm going to stick my fork in. Oh yeah, it's getting soft already. Depending on, of course, the size that you cut your vegetables into will depend how long it takes to cook. So I did cut these into fairly small pieces, so it's really cooking fairly quickly. Now, and add my apples. This was 2 apples that I chopped up. So this is going to give it some nice sweetness. And then in goes my cranberries. This is about half a can. Oops, what's that? But you can see how those cranberries give it a really nice color. They kind of brighten up those root vegetables. And you can also see how once they hit the heat, some of that sauce that was around the berries themselves just gets mixed into this sauce that's there. So that'll give that a nice flavor. While this is cooking, I want to discuss another way of keeping foodborne illness out of your kitchen. It's the second step, separating things. It's really important to keep raw meats, raw seafood, raw eggs separate from foods that you're not going to be cooking, because those juices, we don't want to have them transferred from the raw products to the foods that are going to be eaten, because that's where some of the bacteria can be found often. That means you don't want to use the same cutting board to cut raw meat that you're going to use to cut raw produce with. You want to wash that cutting board in between. If you have raw eggs and they drip on the counter, you don't want to have something touching those raw eggs, even your hands, that is then going to go touch something else that you're going to be eating, not be cooked. It's called cross-contamination. You want to avoid that. This is looking beautiful now. These are getting nice and soft, and you can just see the steam coming on. The seasonings are spread throughout it, and it's smelling delicious. The last ingredient that we're going to add is our leftover turkey. So this is from the turkey that I cooked. I'm going to put that in. Get that mixed up. Let that all heat together. We've talked about keeping things clean. We've talked about keeping things separate to avoid cross-contamination. The next thing you want to do is remember to cook things to the proper temperature. And the best way to do that is with a food thermometer. And so what I did when I cooked my turkey was to make sure it was done to the right temperature, 165 degrees. This is what I used to make sure it was cooked exactly to the right temperature to kill that bacteria that we don't want to have doing bad things to us. The last step for the food safety, preventing foodborne illness, is cooling things to the right temperature. So when we talk about chilling things, we're really talking about keeping them at the right temperature. We're talking about keeping them at the temperature where bacteria is not likely to grow. And that's below 40 degrees, which is the temperature a refrigerator should be, and above 140 degrees. So anything that's at room temperature, things are given a good opportunity for bacteria to grow. So when you're thinking about or planning to thaw your turkey or your chicken or whatever it is that you might be taking from the freezer, the best place to thaw it is in the refrigerator. You're going to keep it then at a safe temperature. You do not want to put your turkey or chicken or whatever it is out on the counter and just walk away and let it sit there. What happens, it starts to thaw. It thaws very slowly, and as it's thawing, that gives a good opportunity for bacteria to grow in that, what we call the danger zone, that temperature between 40 and 140 degrees. So if you put it in the refrigerator, the best place to do it is make sure you allow enough time for it to thaw. The general rule is it takes about 1 day for every 5 pounds to thaw. So if you have a big turkey, you're going to have to really plan ahead to make sure you allow enough time for that turkey to thaw. If you find yourself in a rush that you haven't allowed enough time for that turkey to thaw, or chicken, there are some shortcuts you can take, but they're safe shortcuts. The best way to do it is you can submerge your chicken or turkey in cold water. You want to make sure that it's sealed, would be still in its packaging. Submerge it in the cold water. That will hasten the thawing. But you need to pay attention to that. You can't walk away from that. Every 30 minutes you need to keep changing that cold water to keep it cold. Thaw your turkey in the cold water. You do have to use it as soon as you finish thawing it. If you thaw your turkey in the refrigerator, you can still use it a day or two after it's thawed if you're keeping it in your refrigerator. After you've cooked your turkey and enjoyed it on Thanksgiving Day, it's important to chill those leftovers in the right way. You don't want to leave them out for hours and hours. In fact, you don't want to leave your leftovers out for more than 2 hours. Again, we're talking about that temperature range, room temperature, where bacteria can grow quickly. So it's important to put the turkey away, put the stuffing away, get it away within 2 hours of really after you've cooked it. What you want to do with your leftovers is, if you can, store them in a shallow container. That will help them cool more quickly in the refrigerator. And also, you don't want to keep them for more than 3 to 4 days. But there are wonderful things you can do with leftovers. And as you can see now, we have a delicious looking harvest stew full of vegetables, turkey, cranberries, and some wonderful seasonings. I'm just going to look for that bay leaf, see if I can find it. There it is. I'm going to take that out. And then our stew is ready to go. So today we've made a delicious harvest stew made with some Thanksgiving leftovers. And we've also talked about some ways to help prevent foodborne illness in your kitchen. Remember to clean things, separate things to prevent cross-contamination, cook things to the right temperature, and chill them at the proper temperature within the right time. So I look forward to seeing you next month when we'll be talking about holiday snacks.